Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for the Cuckoo's Fiancee, Chapter 64. When we last left our heroes, we sort of left 62's great cliffhanger alone, and instead had a bit of a flashback to Nagi and Hiro's first meeting, how, even before they met, Hiro was kind of one-upping Nagi, which then led to Nagi at one point got like a stomach bug and ended up in the nurse's office at the same time. Hiro was battling a fever, but she still kind of pushed through the fever, took the test, got first place, and Nagi kind of, told her that he knew all that, and that he was super impressed by her, and she like snapped at him, never speak to me again. And then the next day, Nagi came to school, and she had cut her hair and lost her glasses, and she became the hero that we know today. So it opened a lot of questions, and let's see how much, if at all, this chapter really touches on them. So we have 64th Foul, do you remember what happened back then? And our picture here is of flashback Hiro kind of sitting on the floor, still with her long hair and glasses. Nagi runs recklessly. Where will their elopement take them? And we open on the present. We're actually not dealing with a flashback this week, it seems like, with the two of them sitting at a bus stop after Nagi ran away with her. As the two of them just kind of sit awkwardly, and one of them says, "The bus is late." Sure is. And then I think this is Hiro's line. So what happens now? For now, we just go as far as we can, I guess. Alright. It's interesting, though, that, Hiro never actually tells Nagi what's going on. Like, we all kind of at least think we know what's going on. But we might be, kind of in the wrong here. I don't really think we are. We might be. So I'm curious. The assumption is that Hiro was going to meet her fiancé. But it's never said. Nagi just sort of, makes the rational assumption and takes action. And we'll see exactly if that sort of rashness comes into play later. Anyway, Hiro comments, "But what a surprise. I can't believe you did all this with only 1,000 yen in your pocket. Not like I got any cash." And Nagi apologizes. I'm sorry. I can't believe I let this happen." And he thinks, "For real. I took Seigo-san's hand and just ran. I've gone and done it this time. But I have no regrets." I like his sort of reassertion of confidence. Then Hiro speaks, "And Umino-kun," and both their stomachs rumble. "I'm getting kind of hungry." And they get some not McDonald's, which apparently 1,000 yen can cover for two people. My own McDonald's ordered about $8, so they must have some really cheap McDonald's over there. Or, actually, hold on. So we have, our first picture is of Hiro eating a burger and drinking whatever she's drinking, probably a soda or something. Tasty. And we see Nagi just eating fries. So I feel like they only got the one meal. Nothing like a full stomach. And Nagi, mouthful of fries, responds, "You said it." And then he looks over at his spare change, which only looks to be 300 yen and 300 some odd yen. But with what we have left over, and after the bus fare for two, hamburgers sure are expensive, huh? I don't eat out, so I had no idea. It's another. That's honestly, I'm not sure if that fits as an example. I can see that Nagi is so poor he just doesn't eat out, but I feel like most poor people kind of just know prices. It's not like Erika, who would have no idea how much money something costs. And I guess it works as Nagi doesn't really go fast food eating. He wouldn't quite have a grasp on how much money it costs, but I don't know, something about it rings very slightly false to me. Anyway, she hands Nagi the partially eaten burger. "Here, the rest is yours." "Huh? The leftovers. You can have the rest." Okay. There's something about calling it the leftovers that seems kind of condescending, almost. But Nagi brushes it off. No, thank you. I'm fine, really. The fries are more than enough for me." "That won't do. There's no telling when we'll be able to eat again." Nagi snaps. "No telling when?" Which is, like, where are they planning to go? Are they not going back to the house? I mean, I guess the Sagawas might know where the house is, but there's not really been any sign that they know where the house is. They only found Hiro when she was out on the town. So it's unclear where exactly they're supposed to be going here. Anyway, Nagi looks at the burger, but that means an indirect kiss with Seigo-san. And with that, all of his inhibitions are gone as he just chows down on the burger. Let's go! And the drink, too! And Hiro laughs. Ha ha ha! Enjoying yourself? Of course, I'm honoring the occasion. Honoring? Then Nagi kind of pulls out his phone. But now what do we do? With what money I've got left, we can't afford to play Romeo and Juliet. And then he gets a text from Erika that just says, Nagi-kun, where are you? And then he flashes back to what Erika said a few chapters ago. We'll never get to see her again? I don't want that to happen. And Nagi kind of, makes his decision. I guess we have no choice but to rely on Amino-san. And just then Hiro speaks. You really did it. I thought you might. I thought just maybe you'd come and save me again. And I really... I talked in chapter 62 of almost the exact opposite of this. How, in, the big shots in that chapter, the background just melted away. But here, the background is in just stunning detail. Yoshikawa is a fantastic artist, and I praise her a lot for that, but I still feel like even that is just not enough praise for what this woman deserves. That's some gorgeous art right there. Anyway, that line stops Nagi in his tracks, and they just sit there for a moment and watch the light on the other side of the street. And then Nagi asks, do you remember what happened back then? Which is our chapter title. And he is seemingly referring to the flashback from last chapter. As Hiro responds, yeah, I remember. And we get the flashback to never speak to me ever again. Nagi says, then, when you changed yourself back then, was that because of me? That's kind of presumptuous, as that was the only conversation you had with her at that point. Though, given who Nagi is and his crush on her, and the timing of that, I see why Nagi would think that. But Hiro stands up and says, tell me, Umino-kun, are you curious why I'm so fixated on being the top student? Well, to shake off my fiancé. Okay, are we finally getting the Hiro backstory we've been waiting over a year for? Because there's always been a kind of air of mystery over her engagement situation. There's just some definition that we need to get in there. But Nagi asked, shake off? I really love our family's shrine. I thought that alone was enough, but we're a shrine with 1,300 years of history. Because of that, the question of succession is kind of a big deal. Excuse me. For as long as I can remember, I've been told that I have a fiancé. I just couldn't stand that. And Nagi kind of agrees. I totally get it. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing we should think too deeply about. Because that sort of seemed like a rejection of Erika. And I don't know if it's meant to be a rejection of Erika, or if it's more, when Nagi's with Hiro, his attraction to Hiro is so strong that he kind of forgets about Erika, especially with Erika not being there. Because I do think Erika would have a very, very different take on this conversation than Nagi. But also, we get some nice consistency with Hiro, as, her controlling her destiny is the kind of thing she's always... back to that line in chapter 15 or somewhere around 15 on that topic, to her arrival at the Umino Amino house, and just the outrage that her parents would decide her future for her. That's always kind of been her driving motivation. Anyway, Hiro continues, I didn't want it to be about some powerful fiancé. I wanted to safeguard our shrine all on my own. And so I kept myself at the top of the class. I thought I could make my parents understand or something. So there's something about that strikes me as very, very objectively ineffective, but kind of relatably teenager. Like, her plan makes no objective sense. There's no reason that her being at the top of her class would make her parents forget about the engagement or forget about succession, or like, especially because succession, if it's a familial shrine, kind of requires a marriage and an heir. Or I guess it doesn't require a marriage, but if you're a traditionalist, it kind of requires a marriage. And so there's no real correlation between those two things. But it's the kind of thing I could believe Hiro in her position would think that, or at least would try to make that work. Even if in like her heart of hearts she knows it wouldn't work. I can see the connections there. Anyway, Nagi is just love struck. She's so cool. And then Hiro turns back to him. But then you showed up. And Nagi is just kind of stunned at that line. I also just love that panel right there. You know, I talked about this a little bit in my March video yesterday. The kind of shift that happens when you have a very text-cluttered page, like page 10 here, and then you cut to, 5 words on the top of page 11, and it all slows down. Everything else feels like a ramble, and now she's hit the important part. Then you showed up, and that kind of changed my plans a little bit, and we'll see how in a bit, I think. Nagi is stunned, of course. And Hiro continues, and so there was yet another reason to stay at the top of the class. Because I had a fiancé. I didn't want to let anyone get too close to me. And Nagi kind of looks away, right, and thinks to himself, and here I am, trying to get close to her with a fiancé myself. Okay. So I commented earlier, on the last page, actually, about Nagi seemingly almost not forgetting about Erika there, but sort of not considering her. But then here he is kind of conscious of the fact that, like, maybe morally he maybe shouldn't be pursuing Hiro. It's not the kind of thing that's going to stop him, especially given the circumstances of his engagement. But I don't know, it's a nice little shading to him. And then Hiro turns back to him. After all, that would mean we would have to break up eventually, right? That'd just be too difficult. So I noticed, though, that she is not... That's, I think, the first time she's even indirectly stated to Nagi that she likes him. Because, she doesn't say, I like you, but there's no way to get that sentence right there. That would mean we'd have to break up eventually without wanting to go out with him. That's to break up with someone, you have to go out with him. And that's as close to a confession as she's given Nagi, I think. And so Nagi's kind of stunned there, and then he just says, you're needier than you seem. Huh? Really? And she kind of pouts. I'm not like that at all. And Nagi sort of smirks. She's so cute. And then Nagi continues, so that means when you changed yourself back then. And Hiro picks up, like I said, it was to keep people like you from coming any closer. Well, that didn't work. As we saw last chapter, that's the moment he fell in love with her. Right? That was how last chapter ended, I think. Yeah, that's the moment. So yeah, great work there, Hiro, I guess. Anyway, she continues, and so I decided, if someone would still approach me, I couldn't be just the smartest person around. I had to be the most fashionable, most athletic, most popular, the best at everything. I'd put myself on such a high pedestal, no one would think of coming into my shadow. Interestingly, here, her motivations for being the smartest seem to be more focused on her parents and her fiancé. But this bit doesn't really seem... It seems to be more focused on... She says people like Nagi, but at that point, specifically Nagi. That's more... I can't get... It's a change in priorities. And the ramifications, I don't think, have quite quite finished churning in my head. But there's definitely a change in her focus there. And Nagi is stunned. And he like falls to the ground. That's the reason? Everything was to distance herself from me? Yeah, he's not taking that too well. But Hiro continues, but in the end, people unexpectedly gravitated to me. I thought this isn't so bad either, and I started to enjoy school. Besides, despite all that, you kept coming, and we have that confrontation from one of the earliest chapters. I'm going to beat you no matter what! And Hiro looks at him, and so, and we flash back one more time to Never Speak to Me Ever Again, as she says, ever since that day, you just might have been changing my destiny. And there is our money shot right there, with like the fountain blowing behind, or geysering behind them. That's just a good shot. And Nagi looking up at her like stunned as Hiro looks down at him. And Nagi just is stunned. Huh? You mean... And just then, someone walks up. And it's Erika! With a megaphone, here to kill the mood. Alright, no more coming of age here. This is the adolescence police. How much of that did she hear? And the two of them just stare at each other, stare at her, and Hiro just lets out, Erika-chan? How? And Nagi's just stunned. Did she figure it out from my message? Did he text back? I don't remember him texting back. Okay. Come on, you two. Vamos! And then we come back to what I think is the shrine. As everyone sits down, as Eric has brought them back to the Seigawa shrine to have tea with Mrs. Seigawa. And one of the more awkward family dinners this series has given us. I do love, this is another good money shot. The detail in this panel is great. Like, you can even see like the individual lines in the side of the wood table. That's just some good detail. Like, holy shit, Yoshikawa is just a fantastic artist. Anyway, Mrs. Seigawa takes a sip of her tea as Hiro watches her, and Erika opens with perhaps the worst thing she could say for Nagi's goals at this point. This is my fiancé. And Nagi looks at her stunned. Please accept my deepest apologies for the disrespect my fiancé has caused. And she bows Nagi for him. Next time, an elopement reflection meeting. So here we see Erika at like her most sort of penitent. She's not normally this kind of... Like, it's definitely a different air she's carrying herself with compared to this is the adolescence police, like three pages earlier. So, okay, let's take a look at this chapter. There's a lot here. A lot of sort of getting into Hiro. I mean, I think... Because I'm trying to think of any chapters we've really had from Hiro's point of view. It's mostly been, Nagi looking at her and making his own assumptions about her, and us making our own assumptions about her from Nagi's thoughts. But this is kind of the most we've ever gotten of Hiro just sort of laying out her own sense of self, her own motivations. And they're not objectively, like I said, they're not really well thought out, but they're about as thought out as you might expect from like a teenager. Her thoughts are like, if she keeps myself at the top of the class, the line on the bottom of page 10, I thought I could make my parents understand or something. And it's that or something there that's kind of telling, I think. Because even she, if she tries to like put her thoughts into words, she can't really figure it out. She doesn't really know why she thought that would work. But it's like it was the best move she had. It was really all she had in her arsenal, so to speak. Was just to like be at the top of the class and maybe they'll understand. Maybe I'll be able to like get out of this engagement. And it didn't work. And even if it had worked, she then kind of got distracted by Nagi. Like I said, I love how all of the clutter of all of the dialogue goes away for just those 5 words, but then you showed up. Like it's a really nice sort of trick in a manga artist playbook. Um, anyway, and we sort of see that a lot of Hiro's change was, the idea that someone could get close to her was sort of, bad, because she was already kind of stuck in this arranged marriage and nothing would ever work out. It is kind of interesting that she, instantly goes to romance. That's kind of like, she doesn't want to let anyone get close to her. And she kind of ignores even the idea of, like, a platonic relationship, I guess. Like, her first thought is, that would mean we would have to break up eventually if they got close. And I'm curious if if it's something about Hiro never really considering a platonic friendship with a guy, or it's just a kind of, a general cultural heteronormative worldview that men and women can't be friends. I don't know. It might be a character thing. It might just be Yoshikawa's kind of assumptions. But anyway, I also do just love, Hiro is just sort of laying out her thoughts. But if you frame it in a certain way, like she kind of does, it is kind of anti-Nagi. It was to keep people like you from coming any closer. And Nagi is, like, not exactly happy with that. He falls to his knees. But yeah, it does lead to this great moment of, I mean, I've kind of said over the past few chapters, I'm closer to a Nagi Hiro shipper than I've ever been. They have this moment, ever since that day you just might have been changing my destiny, that's just, I mean, it's a big romantic scene. And then Erika interrupts it. And sometimes I wonder if I'm looking at this series too deeply. And this is a moment where I might really be looking at it just a little too deeply. Particularly the timing of Erika's arrival. Like, on first instinct, and what probably was meant to be, is just a gag. Of course she comes in at the big dramatic moment. No more coming of age here. This is the adolescence police. Let's stop. It's still a harem manga. We can't have that much progression. Come on, let's slow our rolls, right? But also, it's the fact that she shows up right then. And she's a romantic rival and Hiro is her romantic rival, and right as Hiro is making good advancement on that romantic plotline, Erika comes in and directly is like, stop. It might be a deliberate meta thing, of Erika of Yoshikawa deciding Erika would show up there because Erika wouldn't want Hiro to get too far ahead in this romantic rivalry. Or it might just be nothing. It might be nothing. But anyway, with all that, with Erika's arrival, everyone goes back to the temple. And it's time to talk about... It's time for everyone to just kind of come clean. Hiro has to be honest with her mother. I'm curious, like, what all Hiro has ever told her mother about her thoughts about her engagement. Because there's something about this... I'm curious, because, like, looking back at page 10 again, which I think is such an important page to work out how Hiro feels about the engagement, is that, like, did she ever tell her parents that she did not want to be engaged to this man? I'm not sure if she has. I get the feeling that she just has kind of kept all of this buried deep inside for 15 years. And so next time could be the first time she ever really has it out. So yeah. This was a really fun chapter. And there's a whole lot to kind of pick at. Yoshikawa, God, this is just a great chapter. Her art is, holy shit, the art in this chapter is gorgeous. The there's a lot of sort of depth to be mined from Hiro in this chapter. And next time we'll get even more, as I think Hiro's going to have to just be honest with herself to her mother for, I think, the first time. And that's going to be at least a little painful for her, I think. But it'll be good reading next week. So yeah, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, do whatever makes you happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!